Good morning, this is Shindo. Regardless of what you may have been led to believe that somehow the whole Brexit economic problem is now simply over, that we only had to deal with the stock market going down for a couple of days and now it's recovering. The underlying problem which Brexit has brought to the fore so that people can see is not gone. The underlying problem is not gone. Folks, for many, many years, we have been living in an economy that is a worldwide economy. What happens in Europe will affect us here in the United States. The economy they're talking about now, but not where you can just see it on your regular newscast, because on your regular newscast they treat you like you're 10 years old and retarded. So those of you who actually want news have to find it, and I am here to help you to find it. For many years I have been listening to a man named Greg Mannarino. Now, I am not interested in day trading as far as making a quick buck on the stock market. I'm not interested in that at all. I am, however, interested in the macroeconomic view of things as far as not just what's going on here in the United States, also from the macro level, looking at what's been going on over the course of many years. This is not something that just happened overnight because of a Brexit vote. Now they're talking about Italy. And I'm going to read from this article from CNBC. I found this on CNBC. I found this on this article elsewhere, but this one is dumbed down enough for us who are not economic experts to understand. Thanks to this man, Greg Mannarino, I have been able to do a little investigating of my own to find this for myself. I will give you a link, not only to this article, as I always do, but in the description box, I will also give you a link to Greg Mannarino's YouTube. I've been listening to him for 4 years, and although it seems that like he's constantly believing that we're on the brink, at this point, folks, there's no denying it. We are on the brink of an economic collapse, and if you have any sense, you will prepare yourself for this. This is from CNBC. European news. Italian banks may make the next weak spot in Europe. This is from yesterday. Holly Elayat is the author of this piece. The Brexit vote immediately sparked speculation about which country may be the next weak spot in Europe. And increasingly, it is clear that the answer may be Italy. 17% of bank loans in Italy are bad, according to Monday's report in the Wall Street Journal. That figure, which comes out to a combined 360 billion euros in bad debt, is more than 3 times the bank loans that were bad in the U.S. on a percentage basis at the height of the financial crisis. The report comes as investors are already on edge due to an upcoming referendum on sweeping political changes, and a report suggests that Italy could be prepared to bypass European banking regulations. The Financial Times reported Sunday that Italy might, quote, defy the EU and unilaterally pump billions of euros into its troubled banking system if it comes under severe systemic distress, despite warnings from Brussels and Berlin over the need to respect rules that make creditors rather than taxpayers fund bank rescues, unquote. Citing, quote, several officials and bankers familiar with the plans, unquote, the FT said Italy's threat had raised alarm among European regulators, quote, who fear such a brazen intervention would devastate the credibility of the union's newly implemented banking rule books during its first real test, unquote. A spokesman for Italy's Prime Minister Matteo Renzi denied the report, saying, quote, Italy has no intention of defying Brussels on the banks. We respect the rules and prefer market solution for our banks, unquote, Reuters reported. On Tuesday, Italian Economic Minister Pier Carlo Padoan said a precautionary liquidity boost was available for Italian banks if necessary, but not recapitalization, Reuters reported. Italian bank stocks were among the worst faring stocks on the Pan-European STOXX 600 index on Monday and ended up mixed on Tuesday. Italian households hold about 29 billion euros worth of bank-issued bonds that are subject to being written down or converted into equity in case those banks need to rescue themselves through a so-called bail-in, according to April reports for the Bank of Italy. In other words, the EU says that because you're part of the EU, all of these $32.17 billion, 29 billion euros, worth of bank-issued bonds that people have as part of their retirement funds can be taken when they say that it can be written down or converted into equity. In other words, they can say, okay, well, your bond is only worth half of what it was worth yesterday, or they can just take your bond altogether. Those regular pensions and depositors who have invested in higher yielding bonds could, under EU rules, take a haircut in case of recapitalization. A haircut, folks. For domestic political reasons, Renzi wanted to avoid that outcome, which has set him at odds with the union. Shares of Banca Monte dei Paschi di Siena tumbled on Monday and declined more than 19% on Tuesday. Trade was halted at times, according to Reuters. This came after the European Central Bank told BMPS on Monday that it might cut bad loans on its books by 2018. BMPS is believed to be the oldest bank in the world and one of Italy's largest financial institutions. Italy's UB Banca and Unicredit paired Monday's sharp losses on Tuesdays, while Banca Popolare di Emilia Romagna closed roughly flat. Please forgive my very bad Italian pronunciation. The fact, quote, the fact is the Italian government is up to the proverbial creek without a paddle with its banks, unable to bail them out and stuck with a portfolio of up to 360 billion euros, $400 billion, of non-performing loans that are strangling the life out of the Italian economy, unquote, Michael Husson, chief market analyst at CNBC Market, said on Tuesday's note. Quote, of those loans, BMPS is estimated has about 48 billion euros worth, and with a market capitalization of about 1 billion euros, it's not hard to see where the problems lie, unquote, he added. The UK's Brexit referendum has injected greater uncertainty into Europeans' growth forecasts, including Italy's. Folks, Brexit was not about how great it's going to be for England. It was about how bad it's going to be for the EU. That, in turn, has created worries about higher loan losses at the country's banks, coupled with failing government bonds, yields that further hurt financial institutions' margins. EU banking union rules are designed to shift losses onto its shareholders, bondholders, and large depositors rather than taxpayers in the event of another financial crisis like the one experienced in 2008, when taxpayers in some countries bore the brunt of collapsing banks, having to be rescued by national governments. Italy's banking system is considered to be one of the most vulnerable in the Eurozone, with a high level of non-performing loans, NPLs, estimated to total 360 billion euros, $400.7 billion, overshadowing the sector. Societe Generale's global research analyst, led by Patrick Legland, noted on Monday that Italy's somewhat chaotic banking system was, quote, still fragile, facing, quote, specific headwinds related to the disposal of their NPL market, while bankruptcy process and time for repossessions deter investors, unquote. Renzi makes a gamble. As well as rising financial risk, Italy has also faced potential political instability in the coming months, when it is due to hold a referendum on the constitutional reform, a vote seen as a make-or-break event for Prime Minister Renzi by the end of October. Former Prime Minister Mario Monti told CNBC at the weekend of the referendum was a, quote, gamble. Quote, it is true that Mr. Renzi made a bit of a gamble by unnecessarily putting his prime ministership on the line in the case that he loses the referendum, unquote. Monti told CNBC at the conference at Aix-en-Provence in France. The referendum is aimed at reforming and reducing the power of the Italian Senate and is designed to make it easier to govern. Deadlock in the lawmaking process is a persistent bugbear between the lower and upper houses of parliament in Italy, making attempts at reform a slow, tortuous process at a time when Italy's fragile economy has needed it most. Italy's emerging from almost 2 years of economic contraction in May 2005, but could still be vulnerable to a political shock should the referendum fail. The referendum is aimed at reforming and reducing the power of the Senate, making it easier to govern. In other words, giving more power to the Prime Minister. In other words, giving more dictatorial power to the Prime Minister. Folks, it's going to happen here. City analysts said the note of the weekend that Italy constitutional referendum was, quote, probably the single biggest risk in the European political landscape this year among non-UK issues, as Prime Minister Renzi's political future may be tied to the outcome of the referendum, unquote. Analyst Tia Fordham, Ibrahim Rabi, Gada Ghani, Guliami Munuet, and Christian Schultz said that the vote is risky, coming amid a rise in anti-establishment populist sentiment, a factor that played a part in the recent UK referendum in which a slim majority voted to leave the EU. The vote raises the risk of Renzi exit at a time when the upstart five-star movement are riding high in the polls, with Italy having among the highest level of Eurosceptic sentiment, unquote, the analyst said. Quote, if Renzi loses the referendum and resigns, the resulting domestic political instability could well trigger significant financial volatility in Italy and Europe, due to the lack of obvious alternative leaders and or the risking likelihood of the anti-establishment M5S party entering the next government. Recent polls on the referendum outcome and the poor performance of Renzi's PD, Partito Democratico party, suggests that it's far from assured that the referendum will go Renzi's way, unquote, they warned. So here, just like here in Italy, just like here in the United States, we are seeing both political and economic instability. What happened yesterday with the FBI director giving this long list, this laundry list of what Clinton has done, and then turning around and saying he does not recommend indictment, indicates just how bad the political system is here in the United States. I mean, we're living in a banana republic. People just haven't come to that realization yet. I mean, folks, wake up. Wake up. The reason all these things are happening comes down to simple economics. Underlying all of this, all of what's going on, all of the reason why somebody like Donald Trump can become president and will become president is the economic issue. Underlying all of this is economics. We are approaching an economic collapse. We're virtually in it right now. It's just that you all out there aren't aware of it. But I like to be practical about these things, and I ask myself, what is it that I can do personally about this? Well, I'm sure you've heard it before. Those of you who are following what's going on in the world economics. Buy silver, buy gold, buy precious metals. I wouldn't hold on to them and hold on to them and hold on to them thinking that somehow you can hold on to them forever, because I'll tell you something. It's going to come a time just like when Roosevelt demanded the silver and gold back. We are looking at a very, very difficult time. And this has been coming for years. I've been watching it now for 5 years, myself personally, I mean intently for 5 years. Even now, with everything that's right there under the surface that can be found simply through a simple Google search, many still are not aware of it. I am going to put a link to Greg Mannarino's channel in my description box. It's a little bit that I can do for you. I do these videos, I sit here and I do these, I read these articles for you. I don't ask for anything in return, and somehow I am vilified for it. This message, my message, Lucy's message, which is a spiritual one, cannot be heard as long as people are too starving, literally starving, to hear it. Truly what we're seeing is a setup for a one world government, a setup for a one world economy. Folks, it's coming. And I've been warning you for 5 years that it's been coming. So if you're not prepared, wake up and do it now. Get prepared. Practical understanding. Buy yourself a little extra food. Canned food. Canned food will keep for 3 years on average. That's minimum. You don't need the special food packages that are sold by crazy people like Alex Jones. Canned food will keep for 3 years minimum. These are practical knowledge things that you can find out for yourself, but you need to find them out. Here I am 20 minutes almost into this video, and I imagine that the drop-off after I started reading this boring article dropped off halfway through this video, if most of you made it this far. Wake up. Start acting like adults, folks. I'm tired of dealing with a bunch of children. And do things responsibly in order to make sure that you will actually make it through these coming months and years. And if you think I'm just using some kind of scare tactics, I'm not trying to sell you anything, folks. I'm not trying to sell you Jesus. I'm not trying to sell you silver. I'm not trying to sell you anything. I'm simply trying to help you. Wake up, grow up, and get prepared. This is Shindo. Have a good Wednesday.